Hey guys, so it has been about 2 days since my last video, and as you can see in that last video, Bitcoin was on the verge of breaking down from the 4-hour uptrend. And if I just have a look at what has happened, we have completely broken the 4-hour trend line. And that means that our entire uptrend since the fourth time breakout on the 5th of April, around $67,000, is now broken. So both of these trend lines, no matter how you draw it, has been broken. And it actually looks like we have gotten a lower high underneath that trend line. Now, obviously, that downswing is not confirmed because if we have a look at our Gann swing indicator, which you may not be able to see with all of my lines on the chart, but if I just switch over to bars quickly, you can see we have not taken out the low of this bar here. So technically, even though we're compressing underneath the 33 fair value band, until we take out the previous bar low, which this bar did not take out that low, and this bar still has about an hour left, hasn't taken out that low. So potentially, it may happen. We may get the 4-hour downtrend confirmation with our lower high underneath the trend line and the 33 fair value band in the next few hours. But with that being said, let me quickly jump over to the monthly time frame and let's start from the top. Now, it actually looks like, unless something crazy happens in the next 64 minutes, that our monthly BX trender is going to close with a higher low. Now, whilst we got this sell-off down here, I think when Bitcoin was under $76,000, that monthly BX trender was actually still dark red. So even if it does close a higher low, because it would only be by like $200 or $300, I'm just going to discredit this signal. I know Peter DiCarlo over at Traders Helping Traders would probably discredit it as well because price would be trading underneath the 33 fair value band on the weekly. You can see right here. And we don't actually have a green confirmation on the monthly either. And if we do a little bit of backtesting, you can see we do get the occasional fake out on the monthly BX trender before price continues to sell off. Although it is a pretty reliable signal, I just think by $300, I wouldn't call the top to be in for Bitcoin. Sorry, the low to be in for Bitcoin. If we have a look at the weekly time frame, you can see the 1 week, 1 bar trend is still up. This week, I did initially predict this low here to be taken out. And obviously, we've still got a Friday market session and the weekend. So anything could happen with crypto. You know, that's only like a, 4% move? Something like that. 3%, 4% move. I could, instead of doing horrible maths, just draw a price range tool. Not even. It's like 2% from the bar low. And from where we are now, 3.3%. Wow, my maths wasn't actually that bad after all. Yeah, not much more to talk about on the weekly time frame. Although one thing I am possibly considering is that price continues to grind sideways for a bit longer. Because, as I said in my previous few videos, if we get a capitulation now, for us to respect the theory from the previous cycle, where we don't break underneath this trend line again after breaking above it, where we only get the retest from the overside, and that is our cycle low, that would mean that price could not go underneath $68,000. But if we continue to chop sideways, let's say between 80K and let's say 73K, or, you know, 70K, and we chop sideways until, let's say, the middle of June, or potentially the start of July, as Jason has been predicting for a Q3 low, that would give the 33 fair value band and potentially the 200 day moving average. I'm not sure which one he uses. I'll probably just use this one. Has it loaded onto my chart? Where's this thing? Where is this thing? There it is, the blue line. So you can see that blue line lines up very well with the 33 fair value band, so I'm just going to remove that. But let me just grab my brush tool, but let's just say if price continues to chop through here, it would also give us the retest of the 200-day moving average that Jason has been talking about potentially happening. And then if we get the capitulation, that would also give Bitcoin a chance to test potentially the low $50,000 range. Remembering, based on my theory, that the actual price low will not test this -1 standard deviation band again. It will get very close, you can see here, but it shouldn't break below it or the trend line. So potentially, this cycle lows around $52,000. Obviously, we'll have to see how the next 2 or 3 months plays out, and we'll have to see how the moving averages actually end up moving. But that is a theory that I think could potentially happen. Now, if I jump over to the daily time frame, you can see because we have made an outside bar on the 29th of April, that has reset the downswing and turned it back into an upswing, therefore giving us a lower high to draw a trend line off. And coupling that with this trend line here that I have from connecting the 60K low with the 65K higher low, we have respected it a few times on this rally up. You can see it was resistance, resistance, then it flipped as support, support, support. And we're currently compressing between these two trend lines. And if you look at it logically, it could potentially be a bit of a bullish flag or bullish pennant, depending on how you draw it. I'm not going to go throw 1,000 lines over my chart, but if you can visualize this as a bit of a move up into a bit of a flag / pennant pattern, it does suggest that there is potentially another move up incoming. Coupling that with this stochastic RSI bullish divergence. Now, because our two moving averages have not actually crossed over yet, this stochastic RSI with divergences indicator has not actually flashed a divergence signal just yet. But if you just have a look at the 20th of April-ish low, price is currently trading above it. I think the stochastic RSI goes off of closes. Inputs, yeah, source close. So if we ignore the wicks and just look at the close, a 75.7 close is obviously higher than a 73.8 close, but the stochastic RSI, instead of being at 48, is down at around 5 to 20. So instead of being 48 to 55, which does suggest there is potentially another move up. And that weekly time frame, the stochastic RSI is pretty overbought, but nothing says it can't get more overbought because the stochastic RSI can pretty much sit at 100 as price continues to grind a little bit higher. One thing to note is even though this was still in a bull market and price was trading above the fair value band, if we just ignore all of that and we just focus on the stochastic RSI, once that stochastic RSI maxes out, we can see at around 93K, price doesn't usually go much higher. Like most of that move is done. And that's pretty much what I think has happened here as well. Like even if we push a little bit higher to 81 or 82K, which I think is a very interesting number because 82K would be almost 100% repeat of this 60K to 76K move. And that would set us up for a perfect ABC correction on the weekly, a perfectly balanced correction. So let's go down to the 4-hour time frame. And I'll show you why I think we have one more leg up. Now, if you ignore my absolutely messy Elliott wave, I can probably delete all of these previous counts here because depending on the exchange, as I talked about in my previous video, this wave 5 did slightly take out the wave 3 top. It was a very weak wave 5, which obviously, if you remember me saying, had me on red alert that price was going to sell off. And that's exactly what happened. We sold off right down to this trend line at $75,000. Now, I think we had a bunch of liquidation clusters at 74.9, so it has gone just through the trend line and tagged out everyone's stop losses on their longs. But let's have a look at this correction. Now, you can see this first count in the black right here. I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is a perfect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 almost. Like, it is just absolutely perfect. And if you look at this move up, we've got almost a perfect ABC as well. Now, because we've gotten some extension in that wave C to the upside, it does show that there is a bit more buying pressure than the bears would like to hope, because generally a weaker wave C means the next leg down should be more severe. And based off of that analysis, you can see this next leg down did not overbalance this first leg down in either time or price. So that extension in the wave C theory has paid off. Now, I obviously don't claim to have called this. I haven't posted this in any Discords that I'm in or made a video about this. I am saying this with my 2020 hindsight, but you can obviously take this and apply it to the next move on Bitcoin or whatever market you are tracking. Now, this next correction here is really doing my head in. I believe it's a WXY3 drive because you can see this move down was a 3-wave move, a WXY. And we've also seen a 3-wave move up, a WXY, which means in this light green count, we've set up a higher time frame, WXY, which is a 333 pattern, meaning that we should see another 3-leg move down with a WXY. Now, if I show you the market data on CoinGlass, if I jump over to liquidation max pain and I go over to the 1 month time frame, look at where that max pain sits on the 1 month time frame, 73.2. So if we do get another 3-wave move down that takes out this 75k low, we've got a -1 standard deviation band sitting at 73.5, which should move down as price continues to trend down. And we've obviously got this 73.1 liquidation max pain level. And you can see in our 4-hour downtrends, Bitcoin typically tends to see a decent bounce off of the -1 standard deviation line. So I think this is almost perfect analysis right here. If we do get that 4-hour swing turning down with price unable to break above either of these two blue trend lines, then we are going to see another move down. Now, I do have two trend lines here where I've drawn wick to wick versus body to body using candles. And you can see there's pretty much no difference in these two trend lines. And if we do get price grinding sideways a bit, it's pretty much going to touch the trend line where it's converging. And even as time goes on, the trend lines are only going to vary by like $100. So I could probably delete one of the trend lines, but I'll keep two just for information's sake. Now, as Michael always says in his videos, we always have to have invalidation. So before I get to that, you guys might seem a bit confused as to why I was pretty bearish back here. I was talking about price potentially coming down to 71k before bouncing. Why am I getting slightly bullish now? Well, firstly, it is because the weekly trend is still up and the monthly trend is technically still up as well. We're above the macro 50% level, the monthly swing is up, the BX trender, even though it's going to close higher low by not much, is still going to close a higher low. So for as long as these higher time term trends stay up, I do have to expect either consolidation or higher prices. Now, on the lower term timeframes, I do think the daily trend will eventually break down, but that does not mean we cannot see another push up to this 80,600 or even the low $80,000 region, especially with this stochastic RSI diverging. But in an even shorter time frame, we could see another leg down, because this would still set us up for, in this light blue, an ABC correction off of a 4-hour 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse on the black. So if this whole thing is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse up, and we've seen a ABC correction down, potentially we could set us up for another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse up. Now, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 obviously doesn't have to go much higher. Mate, it could take out the previous high by, $500, and that would still mean it is a leg up, where we potentially see when we treat this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the 60K to 76K, and this ends up being a ABC correction, and this, if we get some extension in this next leg up, maybe, just maybe, the low could already be in, and if we do get another weekly downswing, it ends up being a 65 or 66K higher low. Now, I'm not wed to any of this analysis just yet, because, especially with all the volatility in Iran and whatever, we could easily see a massive candle in either direction that completely invalidates my initial Elliott wave count. So right now, I wouldn't think about everything too much. Think about the bigger picture too much. I would just say the trend is your friend until the end when it bends. If I had bought a bunch down at $60,000 of Bitcoin, I would definitely be taking profit in the high $70,000 and even more profit if it goes into $80,000. Obviously, invalidation levels is if we start breaking underneath $70,000 and get closes and lower highs underneath the 50%, the 50-day TMA, and this diagonal trend line here, connected off of our first 3 lows. But for now, I am very short-term bearish, expecting another leg down in this ABC correction. I am mid-term bullish. I expect another leg up on this daily time frame, unless we start breaking down from this trend line, unless we start breaking down from these trend lines here. And this is the interesting thing, I must say. Based on this 4-hour structure, we could see a wave C extension that comes all the way down to $70,000, where this WXY pattern extends a bit longer, and we see a couple more swings in between, something like that. So it really doesn't matter where this current downtrend stops. Obviously, for the bulls, they'd want to see price not really go much lower. Maybe if we come to like $73,000, we print a swing failure pattern underneath this trend line, we might get a 10% move up to 80K, which is still a great long trade. Whether you're using leverage or not, double-digit moves are always great. But if you remember from my previous video, I said when we start to break down from trend lines, we typically see a 5 to 7-ish% bounce. So even if the top for this consolidation is already in, and we roll down to $71,000, and then we bounce to $76,000, that could be our daily bullish divergence playing out, because divergences don't have to play out instantly, especially because we don't even have confirmation. So how am I going to trade this market? Well, I'm going to look at a short trade on a breakdown of a 4-hour bar low, and invalidation would be getting back on top of these trend lines, or our daily swing turning back up, which I think would happen together if we were to see something bullish happen in the market, whether it's bullish news or bullish geopolitical events or whatever. But it does look like to me that on the 4-hour time frame, we are getting more selling pressure than buying pressure, which gives me a very high conviction short trade setup here. The only thing that my conviction is not solid on is whether we will end up forming a swing failure pattern where we come down to, the low $73,000 range, and then we get a fast rejection, and make a higher high, or maybe even a lower high. A 73 to 78K move is still like a 7% swing that you can trade. Or whether we're just going to extend in this leg down and come all the way down to $70,000 and bounce there. So I will obviously keep everyone updated. But that's it for now. Thank you all for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe.